With one hard slam that was shortly followed up with another, Void, in a series of grunts and groans, punched down the door to his abandoned family home. Clutching his burnt chest, he wallowed inside, all the while coughing and wheezing as he tried to self-heal. The little spark was in so much pain, a world of agony from the blast Lotus delivered to his metal shell. But that didn't matter. All that had been on his mind was getting back to his friends. They were in danger, and he had no way of getting home. Or at least, there was still a chance of doing as such. Core, you better have something left in that junk room of yours, or so help me. Void muttered with his head hanging low as he began to shuffle into his old home interior. What was once a place of love and joy had now fallen into a disarray of memories. Everything was as it was left, even down the Void's breakfast plate that now sat molded and dusty on the countertop. Looking around, the spark felt no happiness. Everything was a reminder as to what he had lost: his mother, his father, his brother, and friends. You were a techie tinkerer, Core. You gotta have something I could use. Choosing to ignore his own room out of pain, Void made a beeline right for Core's. With another punch, he knocked the door down and entered his brother's confines. Inside was a bed, next to the window, a drawer, an old closet, ending with walls full of blueprints and equations, the hallmark traits of a science whiz. You damn nerd. I really wish you were here right now. I could really use your help. Nanovason mumbled before suddenly tripping forwards. As he fell face first, Void's right arm hatch snapped open, and out came both the family photo and his stuffed bear that spoke aloud on impact. I love you, Void. To all this, the spark couldn't help but begin to sniffle and lay there in defeat. He was so tired, hurt, and alone. All alone. Nobody was there to hold him. No parent to kiss his head. No brother or friend to get him back on his feet. Like Lotus said, Void would always be alone. I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. They're probably already dead. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Raising his hands, Void clenched his head by the horns and began to weep familiar words that accompanied this depressive attack. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Just wake up! Just wake up! He cried, with a dim blue glow emanating off of him in a pollen-like shine. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Opening his eyes to wipe his tears, Void found there to have been a slight glimmer of light shimmering through the window, just a peek at the golden starlight within the endless sea of static. From its shine, an orange glint reflected off the necklace Jida had given the Void, her friendship necklace. Turning down, the spark looked at it for a long time. As he did, memories with her flashed in his head. All the laughs, all the sadness, but most of all, the companionship, or rather, love. No. Jida. He weakly muttered, with a different kind of feeling beginning to swell in his heart. That sadness inside began to evolve into a mix of passion and urgency. From her necklace, to the photo, and then to the bear, something inside the spark now fully began to shake and awaken, something that felt to be hidden within him for some time. No. No. He groaned while reaching out and retrieving his items. Not again, he stated upon putting them away and into his arm. Not again. Never again. Void grew louder as he turned his eyes up to see an old Spark Design battery lying beneath Core's drawer, Without wasting a second, the Spark extended his fingers and snagged the item and brought it to his hand. "No more crying," he stated before crushing the power cell in his left hand, giving him a full-on charge. "No more losses." Turning with the short circuit of energy given, Void shot open a weak portal right for Aurora. Core was always one to leave his scraps and junk lying around. What was once an old annoyance had now become Void's saving grace. Typical nerd, the Spark thought. "I'm coming, China. Hang on!" Void shouted aloud as he took one leap and entered the fading portal that snapped closed mere seconds after. It was time to end this. Journeys Ahead. Draft 2. Finale. Loss and Honor. Written and narrated by T.S. Proar. Thank you for listening. Shooting out from his portal and landing in an awkward roll, Void fell into the now empty and vacant living room of Nox's workshop. Grunting from impact, he rightfully got back to his feet and shouted aloud in a cold sweat, realizing he was actually back in Aurora. "China! Knock!" the Spark asked, beginning to make his way around the mechanic's home, realizing it to really be empty. "Pofnu! Sarv! Tucker!" Void called again and again, while the lights flickered on and off in sporadic motions. "Jet?" Void then asked as he barged his way into the garage, only to sign relief upon finding the computer bot standing at the broken open garage door. Hey, where's... Oh no. Halting by his computer, Void followed his blank gaze towards the northern side of the city. It was just like before. A bright tear in the sky. Dim, blood-red lightning. Bolts of static and monsters running about. The entire city looked to be flashing on and off with its power supply. Many screams of panic came. Gunshots and law enforcement sirens were heard, as all the glitch's power seemed to be collected over the tallest tower in the northern half. A tower that was now layered in red, glitching cosmic glass static. "They went to fight, my creator," Jet suddenly said as both him and Void turned back to look at one another. "We thought you were dead. I now see that assumption was false. Glad to see you still in one piece, my friend." Jet explained with relief down to his creator, while the chicken that helped power the bot looked to have laid eggs in the meantime. "When did they attack?" the Spark asked as he turned his blue eyes back to the chaos ahead. "A little over an hour ago. Everyone in the southern half here is cowering in their homes, but I fear Lotus and his army will make their way over soon. As for the north, it's a war zone." Jet replied as he crossed his toy grabber arms. "I gotta get over there and fast," the Spark suddenly boasted as he began to make his way over to yet another motorcycle outside the workshop. "Any chance your wings have bloomed yet?" Jet inquired with a tilt in his screened face, as Void revved the engine to a blue shining bike. "No. At this rate, I don't think they ever will." The boy in matching colors replied as he deployed his mother's battle helmet and looked towards his companion. "Jet, if I don't see you again, I hope you know that you helped save a lot of lives in the 5 years since you were born. Thank you for being there for me when I needed it most." The Spark thanked, leaving the machine to nod his head in a ratcheting clank. "If I had the proper body, I would fight by your side, my creator. Good luck." Nodding to his buddy, Void turned forwards and sped off, heading down to the northern side of Aurora, all while hoping he wasn't too late. Rounding the corner and entering into a neon light flickering mess of a downtown, Void immediately set his eyes upon a pair of polychromes advancing upon two figures. They were a pair of enchanted humans. Without wasting a second, Void slid the bike to its side and leapt off of it. Within the air, he transformed his right hand into an arm blaster and began to open fire upon the monsters. Looking up, the two fleeing Northern Siders dove out of the way right as Void came down with a burning blue foot dive. This attack destroyed the glitches in one singular head strike that left Void gasping for air. You two! Get inside a building! Find shelter somewhere underground, anywhere, now! The Spark shouted to the two terrified folks before turning back around and activating his arm blades. There were so many glitches, some the likes of which he had rarely seen. There were the Hellhawks, fat purple blobs of bats that soared overhead with gnashing, gnarled, twisted teeth. Lengthy snakes, large glitches that were in the shape of pythons with visible bones within them. And lastly, the Mimickers, who took on the shapes of cars and other nearby street objects. As old and new enemy faces appeared, Void scowled behind the mask and began the charge with power through the pain. A one-man army. The Spark had no clue on whether he would come out alive or not, so if this was to be his final stand, he would be sure to give it his all. Raising his blades, Void began his onslaught. There was no time to be calculated. This wasn't just him and them, it was him and an entire world. A world that didn't shame him for who he was. A place that Void had begun to see as a new home. He wouldn't allow for it to fall for a second time. In a blind rage of burning blue fury, Void sliced and diced through many of the glitches, going left and right, taking arms, heads in all kinds of spectacular and acrobatic ways. After clearing one horde, the Spark deployed his battle axe and began to strike with heavy hitters. More glitches went flying, breaking apart like Legos, hitting a cold, solid floor. Keep moving, Void screamed inside. Just keep on moving. On and on he went, releasing rockets, unleashing energy pulses, over and over, until at last, he thought to have come to the block's end. Or so he thought. You! A loud, feminine voice shouted from above. Turning, Void set his sights upwards, only to be met with a flash of yellows and blues. Landing with a sharp kick, the sister of Lotus, Solidius, knocked the Spark back, who was able to deflect with a short-lived Nova Rune. You were supposed to stay put! The brat of a glitch shouted with hatred as she snapped her right arm out and turned it into a whip akin to her brother's. You couldn't keep me down before. You won't be able to now. Void spat back as the two engaged in combat. Snapping her weapon down, Solidius slashed once and then twice upon the Spark, who flipped and then slide rolled twice in evasion. Growling with malice, Solidius began to move like a cat, quick and elegant, avoiding the Spark's strikes as they both danced within what Void now realized that had been Aurora's very own Times Square. Ignorant child! She hissed before swinging again and lashing her weapon around Void's axe. More false hero! She followed up with a hard yank that sent Void flying and crashing into the side of a vehicle. Shouting in pain, the Spark slumped to the street and dropped his weapon with a loud clank. Looking up, he eyed down Solidius, who maneuvered towards him in a hip-swaying, threatening walk that demanded authority. I'm getting real tired of you and your kind. She spat with a scornful nature to her voice. But before she could attack, something unexpected arrived. Flying through the air came what Void immediately realized to have been a grenade. As it landed, the hard, rounded-edged weapon rolled to be below Solidius' legs, and before she knew it, in a powerful flash, the bomb went off, causing the legs below the glitch to shatter a tad and make her scream in agony. Get away from the kid, you pyramid-shaped freak! Suddenly emerging from billowing smoke to Void's right, came Tucker, who was now geared up in the military suit he was wearing in the photo within the bakery. It was all green, shoulder padded with tons of pouches, alongside harnessed guns. Within his hands, he carried a massive artillery weapon, and with it, he began to unleash turret rounds into the monster, making Solidius attempt to shield the side of her body. Sarv! The bullhorn then called, getting his wife, who was also in uniform, flying overhead and dropping 2 more grenades. Boom! She hooted as the explosives ignited again. Dearest Grace, Void whispered as he slowly stood to his feet and watched in relief as a familiar orange glint of light appeared above Solidius' falling form. Dropping down with her signature cloak and powerful kick, Jida smashed the glitch's head aside, getting the beast to stumble. In a series of warps and quick attacks, Jida went back and forth upon Solidius before ending it all with one flaming uppercut. Launching back and then crashing into a nearby city shop, Solidius wasn't killed, but instead knocked out cold. However, for extra measure, Tucker took a grenade off his utility belt and threw it inside, blowing the glitch up even further to make sure she stayed down. Warping back to the ground level, Jida turned her head towards Void and immediately went wide-eyed upon seeing him standing there, weak but alive. Void? Void! She shouted with a throwback in her hood, revealing her hair that now be tied back into a sharp and spiky ponytail. Jida, the Spark replied as he retracted his mask with a smile. Working fast on their feet, they both maneuvered forwards and embraced in a spinning hug. Turning their out-of-breath bodies, both Sarv and Tucker, along with a now approaching geared-up Nock and Kot, looked on in relief to what they were seeing. The Spark was okay. He was alive. Pulling back, the 2 kids eyed one another with thankful and relieved expressions, until Jida reared her right hand back and slapped the Spark across the face. Ow! Hey! What the heck was that for? Void asked with a rub to his cheek, as Jida glared at him with steaming and smoking hair. That was for making us think you were dead, you jerk! She shouted before raising her hand back up and providing a comforting warmth to the slap mark on Void's face. And that's for hitting you like that. I am so sorry. Jida quickly apologized, leaving Void to brush her off. No. It's fine. I deserve that. In fact, I think I deserve more than just a slap. What have I done? Void asked with sorrow as he looked upon the city, seeing everything to be in absolute chaos. Kid, what happened to you? Your clothes are burnt. Nock asked as he approached wearing an armored vest while carrying a self-crafted weapon. I lost, Nock. I nearly died. Now Lois is here and doing this as one last laugh in my face. The Spark explained before perking up with wide eyes. Wait, where's Pofnu? Void sharply asked before seeing the little fox poke her head out of a backpack around Kot.
Hi, Void.
She greeted, leaving the Spark to release a breath of ease. I'm sorry, everyone. I didn't intend for any of this to happen. This is all my fault. Furrowing her eyes, Jida reached out and placed a hand atop the Spark's shoulder, making him look to her as she stared back with a determined soul. Hey, you can't fault yourself. You only went in there by yourself to keep us safe. But we haven't lost yet. At least I think. Jida began as she looked to the city. There is a thing my father used to say. A tune is never complete until all of its instruments work in harmony. Jida now said, while gesturing to the guitar around her back, and then to the others. I don't get it, Kot stated, as Void seemed to understand in opposition. What I'm trying to say is that we're only going to be able to stop this is if we work together. Like when me and you kicked those polychromes to HE double hockey sticks. Jida stated with a nudge to Void. Or when we all fought to take down the Titan. She went on, while looking to Nock and Kot. Or like right now, with what we just did together. Jida at last said, with yet another gesture to Sarv and Tucker. If we want to win, it'll only happen if you allow us to aid you, Blue. You're not alone in this, whether you think that or not. Jida finished as she looked back to the boy she loved with a fist bump ready. For a long moment, Void looked upon his friends, who all stood with readied faces. As much as he didn't want them to get hurt, he couldn't help but feel if he had actually brought Jida with him to Salvaheim, all this could have been averted. Time was on the clock, he thought. Every second mattered. No more doing things alone. No more. Together. Void agreed with a returning fist bump, getting Jida to nod back with a smile. Beasts, how do I always get roped into these things? Nock mumbled, as the 7 lucky few began to group up and discuss a game plan. Okay, does anyone know where Lotus is at in the city currently? Void asked, as they now all stood in a team circle. News choppers show that freak made refuge outside the front of Aurora's tallest tower, Sarv stated, as she gestured to a massive building from afar that stood right below the large static tear in the sky. This was the same building that was taken over by the glitch's effect. It was blocky-shaped, extravagant, and flashing with light, all as it was crowned with 3 large electrical Space Needle poles on the roof. Oh no. If you warp us in, I feel like we'd get a sneak attack. But then again, I have a feeling his minions would trample us. Maybe I can swoon him though. Kot joined in, getting everyone to roll their eyes. No, that'll be a death trap. We'd all be blasted to smithereens. Tucker stated as he began to scratch his big bushy beard. Even then, what about those still in the area? They'd be caught in a crossfire. Nock reminded the group when a new voice came through. No worries. Our team has been hard at work getting innocent people underground and in the subway stations. Turning around, everyone set their eyes upon both a new yet familiar face. Approaching out of a now silently rolled up police car came the blue-skinned, white-eyed cop that helped Void and Jida the other day. Name's Sankston. Officer Sankston. But you can call me Matthew. In reaction, Jida immediately pulled her hood up to hide her identity, but Matthew raised a reassuring hand up with a low nod. Hey, don't worry, kid. I'm not one of the bad ones. I'm actually one of the few that believe in what you're doing. The good cop explained before pulling out an article slip from his pocket. I have been one of the advocate voices for the Southern Side's smaller news outlet, trying to get a good word out. You saved my daughter a year ago from a mob attack, and I have nothing but respect. Matt revealed, showing his name atop one of the few good voices that rarely got put out in the city news. My radios are off. No dash cams are activated. Your identity is safe with me. I promise. In response, Jida looked from her friends and then slowly pulled back her hood with a nod. Thanks, she said with a tiny smile, as Void spoke up. Good work then. Look, I think it's best that most of you stay on ground level and deal with the regular glitches, because when Lotus sees me, he's gonna lose his mind. I'll be the primary target, but given his power, I fear he'll tear up the streets. Void explained before Jida nudged him and pointed to the tower. What if we take the fight off the streets and bring him up somewhere high to avoid damage? She asked, gesturing to the massive roof of the tall building that was now being infested with glitchy stone and static even more. I hate the notion, but that may be our best bet at avoiding casualties. The Spark replied, still feeling a sense of fear for heights. I just don't know how we'll get up there, though. The Spark added, getting Jida to look at him with unimpressed eyes. Oh, right, he muttered, as all sights were now focused onto the tower. I've always wanted to save the world, Kot shouted with a smirk as he pulled out a spare pistol given to him by Sarv. It'll be a first for me, Jida exclaimed as Nock looked at her with worried eyes. Jida, he began, but stopped with a stutter. What? She asked, but the mechanic couldn't say it. He was too tense and terrified just to say his true thoughts upon her soul. Remember who you are under the hood. Remember what you have. Don't be reckless. Don't be dumb. Be safe. He reminded, getting the guitarist to nod with stern eyes. Will do, was all she could reply with. For those we lost, Void stated as he redeployed his mask. And for those we honor, he boomed, all while Matt looked to the side, seeing an inactive news chopper, one that looked to have landed as the attack commenced. Resting back upon a new throne jutting out of the crystallizing building, Lotus sat triumphantly with a pleasant look on his face, whilst he watched his kind tear up the town. It was a party in their eyes, a new world, a new base of operation. This was a celebration of absolute destruction. This is great. What'd you say, buddy? Lotus asked down to a sculpture replica of his brother, made entirely out of red glass shards. World domination that acts as punishment for that little brat. Gotta say, I think I might miss that run after I torch him to death. The king rambled, with a close in his eye, and kicked back in his seat. Oh, really? That's oddly touching. The voice of the spark replied, causing Lotus to wince in a state of relaxation. Wow, it's almost as though I can hear him. He replied in his own little world, until Void spoke aloud again. Because you are hearing me, you dimwit. Snapping open his flat glowing eye, Lotus looked downwards in shock to see both Void and Jida standing there before him. What? The king of the monsters cried, before Jida snapped her fingers and shot a fireball right into his eye. Ow! Oh! Oh, God! Ow! He bellowed in pain as the rested news chopper, now piloted by Sangston, soared overhead, with the others inside giving a sneak attack. Tucker and Sarv shot their weapons, as Nock and Kot sat in the back doing the same, while Povnu laughed in enjoyment from the side. Ha! Come on, Flower Boy! Fight us like a real king! Jida howled before snagging Void in her right arm and warping them both up to the side of the tall building. Lotus roared in anger as he reopened his eye into an enraged, blood-red shine. Snapping his head up and smashing his fist into his throne, the king not only destroyed his brother's statue from the smash, but watched on as the two kids went further and further up to the structure, landing on scaffolding platforms just to reach the top. That's it! Teleporting off his throne to standing between his now panicking army, Lotus clenched his fists and began to take on a new form. I knew I should have killed you when I had the chance! Now I'm gonna tear you and your little girlfriend apart, piece by piece! With a change in colors, Lotus's red glass form transformed into a deep shade of purple and black, looking akin to the obsidian platform back in his home dimension. In a quadruple set of snaps, Lotus's arms split apart into a set of fours, while his legs did the same, turning him into a monstrous version of his old self. With a scream, the king shattered the base of his lower cube-shaped head and made himself a glass shard mouth with burning red static inside steaming out. Snarling, Lotus eyed down his growing building fortress, then teleported inside of it, fusing with its glass walls that stretched to the very top. Whoa! Void gasped in an arm-waving imbalance as he looked down to the city below, that now looked like a bunch of ants. Quickly reaching out, Jida snagged the spark by his left hand and pulled him into an upright stance. I gotta conserve energy if we're gonna fight this guy. Are you good with running the rest of the way? Jida asked while out of breath, as she gestured to a bunch of stairs that rounded the building's top. Yeah, let's go. Void replied with a surge of courage, getting them both to begin running up the side of the building hand in hand. Suddenly, from out of the glitching glass's sides, Lotus's now obsidian-colored hands appeared out with snagging and grabbing motions. Gasping, the kids avoided these mitts of death, as more and more of the limbs sprouted from miniature portals, all while the red eye of Lotus followed them both from within the building's windows. It appeared the monster had fused with the taken-over structure, and was now using it to ascend its massive formation.
When I get my hands on you kids, I'm gonna tear out your spines and use them as my own personal necklace!
The king boasted in a deeper voice, as Void and Jida continued to climb and avoid the monster's hands for a small while more. "Keep moving! Don't stop!" Void shouted as they both at last made it to the very top. With another, albeit weaker warp, the guitarist took Void and brought them both away from the ledge and upon a central helipad atop the roof. Readying himself, Void deployed both his blades, while Jida did the same with her fire. Squinting, she even summoned a flaming face guard to cover her mouth that almost made the guitarist look like a ninja. In a staticky glow, a world-tearing portal opened upon the roof's front half, with Lotus slowly crawling out like a spider. To their shock upon his new form, Void and Jida now prepared for anything, as their enemy stands himself upright with hatred in his soul.
I am done with you, Nova Sun. No more games. No more tricks. I'm gonna kill you and all of your little friends.
Lotus practically screamed as he transformed all of his hands into cherry black axes. No, I don't think you will. Because unlike what you told me from before, Void replied as he gave Jida a warm stare, one where she returned with a brace-filled smile. I am not alone. To this, Lotus gnashed his shattered teeth and charged with Void and Jida attacking right back. Slamming his axes down, Lotus slashed all of them into the top of the building, creating a multi-layered red shockwave to erupt towards the kids. Working in unison, Jida warped both herself and Void up and over the attack, bringing them to slash down in the Lotus. With an emanation of purple hues, the two cut an X formation into the king's chest, getting him to snarl and swing his arms wildly. "Jida, heads up!" Void shouted as he began to both flip and unleash chest rockets into the monster. "Way ahead of you, Blue!" His friend shouted back as she twirled and warped from the monster's attacks in elegant displays of power. Sliding to the side, Void activated his axe and threw it so hard it shattered one of Lotus's four legs. That was until it reformed to his horror. As this occurred, Jida blasted upwards with a kicking backflip that hit the glitch in his lower jaw. Rounding back, Void's axe now returned to his hand with another slash on the king's side, leaving him even angrier than he had already been. Not good. He's self-healing faster than before. Void shouted in dread as the king prepared to make his next move. Illuminating his eye, the leader of the glitch now swung his head from side to side, unleashing a powerful red beam down upon the evading children.
When I'm done with you, there'll be nothing left!
Lotus screamed as Void and Jida dodged and prepared to make their next attack. Charging their hands, they both got underneath the Glitch King and gave him a sharp uppercut that sent him stumbling but regaining focus. Rearing back, Lotus swung his forearms up and then slammed them into the ground, creating an uprising of glitch spikes that nearly took the kids' lives.
Everyone and everything you know will die!
He continued to scream before teleporting forwards and smacking Jida aside. Gah! She bellowed before rolling back upright, swinging her guitar and strumming it with such force, flaming notes explode out of the strings, enacted upon by the metal void laced around it. From this attack, Lotus stumbled from the roaring flames, giving Void another chance to strike. Summoning several Nova runes, the spark began to throw and chuck them into Lotus's back, getting him to turn and rapid-fire eye beams down upon the poor spark. "Hey, Cyclops!" Jida now shouted, getting Lotus to turn and get suddenly struck by a whack in her foot. From this, the monster rolled away again, leaving both Void and Jida to regroup side by side. Regaining strength, Lotus glared his eye upon his two enemies, stood back up, and then raised his hands.
You're done, Nova-san!
He bellowed before quickly teleporting forwards in a flash and punching Void and Jida so hard they were thrown back by several feet. Gasping for air, they both went spiraling and sprawling until landing in an awkward, injured position.
You hear me? The last of the Sparks die today!
Lotus cried as his eye began to charge up in a heavy emanation.
And she goes first!
Within the fraction of a second, Lotus shot his beam at the slowly recovering Jida, leaving Void to lunge forwards and guard her at the last second. No! He cried. In a flash, the Spark's back was struck down so hard that had resulted in the roof portion that they were laying upon to crack and break beneath from impact. Void! Jida shouted in horror, watching as Void's eyes flinched in pain, while his back was scorched to a terrible degree. Before anything else could happen, the two kids saw the ground beneath them give way, leaving them both to fall several feet below and into the building. As this occurred, Lotus fully intended to pursue his enemies, but stopped as the sound of a helicopter rose overhead and shone down a spotlight to his body. Turning around, the king locked his eyes upon the chopper Sangson was piloting, with Nock, Kot, Sarv, and Tucker leaping out and landing on the roof. Looking up, they all glared at the monster and aimed their weapons, while Pofnu stayed inside the chopper in Sangson's nerve-wracked lap.
You mortals believe you can take me on your own?
Lotus asked as he began to drag his self-made weapons along the ground.
You mess with the kids?
Nock stated as he cocked his weapon back.
You mess with us.
To this, Lotus merely chuckled and beckoned them all forwards, knowing full well that this was about to be easy. Several floors below within the taken-over building, both Void and Jida laid injured, with the glimmer of light from the hole above providing them the one outlet back into the world. Void! Void! Oh my god! Void! Jida gasped as she crawled herself over to the Spark, with both him and her retracting their masks. Jida, are you okay? He asked in pain whilst laying in a heap of rubble. The only light source that they had was from Jida's hair, Void's blue glowing body, and a faint red light above. I'm fine. Oh my god, are you? She asked while propping the Spark up in her arms. Can you move? Can you get up? She continued to ask while Void looked into her glowing orange eyes. I don't know if we can beat him. He groaned while steam spilled out from his back wound. Of course we can. Come on, get up. Get up. Jida begged as Void remained slumped in place. I can't. I'm too damaged. The Spark stated as he weakly held on to Jida's hand. No, don't say that. Come on. We need you. Jida replied upon hearing the sounds of her family fighting the monster above. We can't win this without you, Blue! Wincing, Void tried to sit up, but was only helped by Jida's arms. Tears began to well in her eyes as the Spark continued to try and move. But in that moment, she realized that the damage may have been too much. Please, I can't do this without you, Void. She started to weep, as the Spark now gently held onto her face. Neither can I, he whispered, getting both their hearts to race and their souls to emanate that purple shine between them once again. Jida, if this is the end, Void began anew as his freckled companion held his face up to hers. Thank you for seeing me when no one else had. The Spark thanked as they both touched their foreheads. And thank you for making me feel as though that I truly mattered again. For a long moment more, the two sat in silence before Void, through it all, smiled with his comforting stare and spoke a few words that made Jaida's heart skip a beat. He was recalling back to what his mother told him, her words of advice and love. He knew in this moment that this was it. This was her. Is it too early to say that I love you? He asked with a blushing smirk. In response, Jaida gave a soft chuckle, closed her eyes, and leaned down. In a gentle motion, she pressed her lips against the sparks, bringing them both into a compassionate and tender moment of love. From this act, both Void and Jaida's bodies began to glow, going from blues and oranges into a powerful lavender shine that, to their shock, suddenly felt the power and regenerate them both into something new, something neither had experienced before.
You're all fools!
Lotus shouted with a maniacal laugh as he threw everyone down to the ground with broken weapons, while Sangson soared overhead in a panic.
You think you could defeat me? Me! I'm now your king, damn it!
The monster shouted with burning hatred as he took one powerful step forwards towards Jaida's now injured family.
That's right! Bow to your god! You hear me? Bow to your god!
With one step after the other, Lotus grew closer and closer as those he was about to eradicate slowly stood firm in their places.
Never.
Noct groaned as he slowly raised his weapon up and took a shot that did nothing to the glitch. Lotus had won, they all realized. Void and Jaida were down, and so were they. They lost. Yet, before anything could be done to them, a bright purple eruption of power exploded out from the roof behind. Snapping his head around, Lotus shielded his eye as the light grew to be brighter and brighter. Noct and the others also shielded their eyes too, immediately wondering as to what on earth could have been causing such a sight. Soon, it wasn't long until that answer came.
What? No. It can't be.
Lotus whispered, as both Void and Jaida launched out of the hole they had made and landed back to the roof, burning with a power the king had only seen very little of in his time of life. Void's eyes and blue glows had transformed into a beautiful lavender pulsating shine that had healed his body fully. As for Jaida, her orange colors were now replaced with cosmic purple flames and constellations that suddenly made the air feel a lot hotter than it had before. This was a power the Glitch King had aspired to gain, a mixture of nature that defied logic when two opposing forces mixed to create something unnatural and wild. The only word that left the king's mouth amidst this realization was the very thing he knew it to be. Beyondor, he said as the two lovers made their move. Tag team? Jaida asked.
Yeah, tag team.
The Spark replied with a clench in his fist with an added scowl. Together in unison, both Void and Jaida uppercut the king with their newfound power that sent him flying back so far he nearly went over the ledge. Getting back up, Lotus reapproached the advancing duo and threw a panic punch. Yet as he did, the Spark deployed his Nova Blades that now shimmered a plum hue and sliced the monster's hand away into a cold gray shattering of glass. Before Lotus even had time to register what had happened, Jaida warped forwards, snagged him by the head, and flung him into the ground. As the king hit the cement of the large roof, Void quickly reapproached charged his horns, and blew the king up into the sky, leaving everyone to watch in amazement. Jaida's family, Sangson and Povnu, even those around the city, gazed on in astonishment as the two heroes gave their final encore. Nodding towards one another, Jaida took Void by the hand and warped herself and him up to where Lotus was above in the sky. As they reappeared before his eye, they raised their fists back and punched the king back down into the building's top. As Lotus crashed, his body shattered apart further. His form couldn't handle this kind of power. It was too strong, even for him. He knew deep inside that this was it. He was now the one who had lost. No! The monster huffed before looking back up and seeing the two kids coming down upon him in a glowing ball of purple Beyonder fire. No! He screamed while unleashing one last blast from his eye beam. This, however, didn't do much. Within seconds, the duo were upon him in all their superpowered glory. No! No! Was all Lotus could say before a giant impulse of power overtook him and the city of Aurora in a bright flash. As his magnificent light faded and all the dust settled, Void and Jaida stood, huffing tiredly but triumphant, over a now shattered, reverted back to normal Lotus. He was still alive, minus it all, but in terrible shape. The king's lower half and right arm were gone, only leaving what was left to glare back at the kids with a fading eye. As the two of them stood near the center of the building's top, Void and Jaida's purple power faded, reverting them back to their normal selves. Getting up and slowly approaching with apprehensive footsteps, Nock and the rest stood behind their heroes, while Sangson landed his chopper still running and approached with an angered Povnu in his arms. Lotus, who was once so grand, mighty, and powerful, now looked like a joke who played himself. The defeated Glitch bellowed, making the Spark and those beside him give Lotus a weird look. What? Void asked in a dry voice as his worst enemy cackled on. Look at you. All of you. So triumphant and tall, gleeful and proud. How underwhelming. The king groggily replied as he slowly shifted himself to be front-facing the eight of them. You know, there's something just so funny about it all. Me thinking I could change this nightmare of a life, believing to find a way out of this loophole, this cycle of never-ending plots, and yet you all believe in my defeat it'll bring a sense of peace. Peace. You're all so gullible. Lotus rambled as his golden-colored eye flickered between life and presumably death. That made all those before him wonder as to why he was suddenly so cheery in his supposed final moments. You sparks, always fighting, never to meet an end, protecting the unprotected, and for what? For what? Lotus continued as he slowly leaned himself up to fully face the group that had now bested him. Him, the king of the Glitched. You're an idiot, kid. Everything will repeat again and again and again. Somewhere this mess will continue over and over like the dumpster fire that it is. You truly think ending me and my people will save your precious, undeserving worlds? Lotus curiously asked as they all locked eyes. Novasun, it doesn't matter if you destroy or seal us away. Like I said,
your crusade is, was worthless. Once our power is gone, another force out there, possibly stronger, will simply slot itself into the empty shelf we would leave behind. A force that may not have the same better mental morals as I.
Wincing, Jida looked down the Void's left hand, noticing that it was starting to grip itself tightly around hers. All the while, Lotus continued speaking without a care.
I destroyed the fix this mess. You destroyed the save this mess. The only difference in our morals, kid, is that one of us had the ability to actually fix it all for good.
Lotus hissed as he and Void were now less than a foot apart.
Wanna know something even funnier, Spark? Because of you and your friends, for what you did here, you are now the catalyst for so many other tragedies to happen upon an endless sea of worlds.
Lotus happily revealed as his eye widened with glee.
You think you saved people today? No. Because of you. More chaos shall spread. More stories of agony will come from the beyond. Because of you. Another child, another poor innocent soul, will suffer the same way you have suffered. Isn't that ironic?
Lotus asked, causing Void's face to scrunch with disgust to his words. Tears now swelled in his eyes as his enemy's monologue cut deep into his heart. Jida, taking notice, tried to calm the spark down, but all Void could do was hear the glitch's words.
As we speak now, some kid out there just lost their family to an unfathomable threat that I could have gotten rid of. And that child may not have the guts like you to survive. It's a cycle, Void. A cycle that you just allowed to carry on.
From this statement, Void's face fell into a wave of unease and contemplation. He was almost tempted to shoot Lotus right then and there. However, before he could, Jida spoke up before any rash motions could be made. Maybe, but where there's dark, there's light. There will be generations because of Void. Unlike you, he did what was right for all life. You're just a monster posing as a king. She spat as Noctu stepped forwards.
You're a weak-minded fool. An emotionless soul who won't be remembered.
The mechanic stated as he kicked a shattering portion of Lotus's arm, leaving him to fall back in pain. A nobody. Kot joined in with a cross in his arms. A loser. Zarv added.
Nothing. You are nothing compared to those who stood up to you today.
Pothnu spoke as well, while Void composed himself and stepped forwards with tears spilling down his cheeks. You're alone. And always will be. He finished, as Jida hauled into his side while watching Lotus fall apart into 1,000 little pieces.
Say what you will, for in my empty soul, I know this is not the end of our story, Novasun.
Lotus weakly called as he fully began to dissolve into dust.
See you around, baby horns.
He bid farewell before fully fading and only leaving behind a little red cube, the only remnant of what Lotus had been, a monster. With a shaking hand, Void slowly knelt down and picked the cube up. Looking at it, he could see his and everyone's reflections looking back at him within its glossy ruby haze. They didn't know what it was. No light emanated off its form. No source of power was felt. It was just a remnant of what the king had been. he was gone. Possibly. Is it over? Void asked as the sky above began to seal up into a starry night, with all the glitches below beginning to fade to dust as well. Is it actually? Void repeated when the building suddenly began to creak and shake. From below, the glitch shards that had infused themselves into the skyscraper's skeletal structure faded away, resulting in the massive formation beginning to crumble apart. Oh my god! The building's falling apart! Everyone, get to the chopper now! Sangson screamed, getting them all on their toes. Quickly, Void pocketed the cube and began to run with Jida to their escape vehicle. Hopping in, Sangson with Pofnu got in the pilot's seat. Behind him, Nock, Kot, along with Sarv and Tucker hopped in too. However, as everyone got situated, a sector of the roof broke away, leaving both Void and Jida to fall down with echoing screams. Kids! Nock shouted in horror, as the good cop had no choice but to go up. In a flurry of dust and debris, the once mighty structure came all the way down to the city's absolute horror, leaving nothing but a massive eruption of dust and flying metal in its wake. Through the debris, all the falling chunks of metal and glass, Jida covered her eyes, fearing that she was about to die. The poor girl had used up all of her energy and was unable to warp in that moment of panic time. However, that feeling of her stomach dropping or hitting hard cement never came. Instead, she felt the sensation of being held in someone's big, gentle arms. Opening her eyes, Jida looked down to see that Void was holding her close in a scooped-up position. But that wasn't all. From out of his back bloomed to life a pair of bright blue energy wings that the Spark seemed to not have noticed himself. What the what? You can fly? Since when did he have wings? She asked in absolute shock, getting Void to open his eyes in surprise. What are you? He questioned, before taking notice of the bright blue appendages leaving his back. My wings! My wings! Void shouted in shock as they slowly glided down to a nearby skyscraper roof. Upon seeing the two kids, Sangson landed his chopper on the very same building where Void and Jida made landfall. They really... Mom was right. Wow. Void stuttered as him and Jida admired the beauty of his wings before they faded into a pollen-like essence into the night. Jida! Void! Nock shouted, nearly to be in tears, as he ran out of the news chopper and tackle-hugged Jida, just after Void had settled her down. Nock! The guitarist replied, as everyone fully regrouped and embraced in the multiple tight holds. Oh, thank God! Are you two alright? Sarv asked as her and Tucker hugged Void, while Kot joined in with hugging Jida.
Void! Jida!
Pofnu cried as she left from Sangson's tired arms to hugging the Spark's legs. Pofnu, we're guys, we're fine. We're okay. The Spark assured, feeling the warmth of everyone's hugs, which began to fuel his heart. Jida, Nock nearly cried as he looked up to his cousin, finding the strength to finally be honest with her. I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you. I never knew how to say it, but now is better than late than never. I'm just always so worried about you, but minus that, I'm proud. I'm so proud of you, kid. I love you. He exclaimed with ugly cries, to the warmth of Jida's heart, leaving her sniffling and hugging Nock back in a tight hold. As all kinds of emotions were shared, Sangson walked up and looked over the ledge, seeing that nobody seemed to be hurt. In fact, people looked to actually be celebrating among the sudden chaos. A&N vehicles came onto the scene. Some of Sangson's fellow police officers even arrived, leaving the good cop to nod with some found ease. Well, I don't fully understand what just attacked our city, but you kids did good tonight, the good cop stated as he turned to look upon them both. I didn't really catch your names, but if you wish to keep it hushed out of fear of me, I understand. Matthew assured, but Void and Jida, who were now freed from their grasps, looked to the cop and answered, I'm Void. Void Novason. The blue spark greeted. And, I'm Jida. Jida Woods. Aurora's angel replied, making Sancton smile and nod. Void, Jida, everyone. You're all heroes. I tipped my hat, but I kind of left it in my car after the whole invasion thing happened. Matthew chuckled before turning around to look out and over Aurora's newfound excitement over victory. I'll make sure the press knows what the Angel and her ally did tonight. You all best get home, though. Cleanup procedures and search and rescue are about to get hectic. The cop added as many sirens came about from around the streets. With tender smiles, Void and Jida nodded before looking back at the others who held relaxed stares of relief and satisfaction.
What about that cube Lotus turned into?
Pavnu asked as she looked up at the spark with curiosity in her heart. Giving an inquisitive face, Void reached into his pocket and pulled out the cube, the remainder of Lotus. I wish I could answer you, kiddo. What matters, though, is that he's gone. And if not, and he's somehow in this little... Void expressed as he tried to break the cube to no avail. Cube, square, block thing. I'm either going to find a way to destroy it, or if all else fails, I'll lock it away somewhere. Hopefully I can manage option 1. The spark explained before pocketing the cube again to everyone's agreeing nods. So, you guys think we'd get a few more games in tonight? I assured Void we'd let him in on the fun. Jida asked as she reached her hand down and held the sparks. In response, everyone from Jida's side began to lightly chuckle and nod their heads, leaving Void, for the first time in a long time, feeling truly happy in his soul. The glitches appeared to be no more, sealed away as he had vowed to do. Void was at peace. Not only was he safe, but his people's memories were now avenged. Not just theirs, but Pavnu's and everyone's who were taken away by Lotus. Void can now only hope that all those lost spirits can now find their way to peace. It has now been a week since the otherworldly attacks in our city, but thankfully, cleanup and rescue efforts have been rather successful. Unfortunately, we have received reports that several casualties occurred during this event. However, if it wasn't for Aurora's angel and her new sidekick, who the people have dubbed as the Blue Bullet, there could have been many more losses. We may not know who they are, but all we can say is a heartfelt thank you for their bravery on that fateful night. An ANN news broadcast said from Nox TV, as him, Jida, Kot, along with even Pavnu, led Void up the workshop stairs in a blindfold of all things. Oh, what? Sidekick? Please. Void scoffed, getting Jida the chuckle in her cutesy attitude. Hey, this was my city first, pal. Plus, I am taller than you. She added as they all made it to the upper floor in awkward shuffles. Har, whatever. Anyways, why am I blindfolded again? This feels a bit ominous. Void asked as they all walked their way into Jida's room. Take it off and find out, little buddy. Kot beckoned with a slap to Void's back, getting the spark to slowly raise his hands and take the blindfold off. And as he did, Void suddenly gasped and went wide-eyed as to what he saw. Jida's room had been completely renovated. The right-hand side now sported a coat of blue paint along the walls that contrasted the Jida's oranges on the left. There was a new bed with black sheets that had his mom-made teddy bear beside it upon the pillows. Off to the side, Jet sat powered off, but plugged into the wall to charge. To top it all off, his old family photo frame now had a forever resting place right beside Jida's. It was even in a clean new frame, making the Spark's heart skip a beat. Void stuttered before feeling the sensation of Jida interlock her hand around his. Welcome home, Void. In response to her words, the Spark did his absolute best to conceal his tears before walking inside and taking a seat upon his new bed. It was both soft and welcoming, like a gentle hug given by a grandmother. You mean I can stay? He asked as Jida and Pofnu took a seat beside him. Well, it's not like we were going to kick you out after being here a little over a week. Besides, Nox stated as he approached and rubbed Void's head, we all enjoy having you around. We're happy to let you stay, kiddo. Smiling with tears spilling, Void softly laughed and nodded his head as he then took notice of a tiny bed for Pofnu beside his own. Guys, The Spark stuttered before Jida cut him off. Also, this is just an option for you, but I've decided that I'm going to be going back to school. Jida revealed with a triumphant sit-up in her posture. Wait, really? Void asked with a turn towards his once friend, now evolved in the girlfriend. Yep. And I'll be honest, after last week, I think I'm more than willing to give normal life a shot again. After all that, I realize living is way too precious for someone my age. So what if I'm bullied? After what we've done, I don't think words can really affect me anymore. Jida said with honesty before getting to the point. And I was wondering if maybe you wanted to join me? I'm a sophomore, so that would technically make you a sophomore too. So, Jida offered, getting Void to reply with a sharp, Yes! Yes, I'd love to. School? Friends? Yes. Nodding his head, Nock turned and gestured for him and Kat to leave the room, realizing that they now had to make a few phone calls to register Void in the classes. Well, we'll be back in a few then. Enjoy the new room, kiddo. Nock called as him and Kat closed the door behind them, leaving Void, Jida, and Pofnu alone. Freckles, I don't know what to say. Void mumbled, while the little fox yawned and rested within her tiny bed. That's okay. We kinda rushed this thing anyways while you were out with Sarv and Tucker. But... Leaning forwards, Jida gave Void a small kiss on the cheek before finishing her words. Just know that you're a part of our group now. We stick together, no matter what. She assured before holding his metal hands in her warmed-up mitts. Thanks for dropping into our lives, Nova-san. Jida lovingly thanked as they leaned against each other's foreheads. And thanks for giving mine back. The Spark replied while leaning in for a kiss. But before he could, the sounds of police sirens rang out from outside their window. As the noise met their ears, the two lovebirds couldn't help but smile and read one another's mind. Say, want to get out there and make the city a safer place, Blue Bullet? Jida asked with a fist raised up for a bump. Speaking my language, Cosmic Angel. Void replied with a returning bump gesture that got the guitarist to smirk and a giggle. In a bright warp, Void and Jida landed down onto a southern city rooftop, the same rooftop from when they first met. running side by side. Void with his mask deployed, and Jida with her cloak over her body, both leapt and jumped between rooftops, whilst in pursuit of a getaway vehicle. From below, the residents of Aurora looked up to the two of them with hope in their hearts, while even Toby the street dog barked in enthusiasm. Finding his courage, Void summoned his wings and leapt off the ledge, with Jida latching on him and riding atop his back. Together, they couldn't help but smile in the glimmering fall light, for the both of them seemed to at last feel whole after so many years. They were both free from their shackles of self-doubt and pain, free from their past that felt to no longer defy or control them, but rather enhance who they were now. Two kids with hearts of gold, ready to protect the unprotected and save the day when it was needed most. For when they were together, nothing could stop Jida Woods and Void Novason, the guardians of not just Aurora, but the Omniverse itself.